The speakers popped. Gold light washed the rented hall. Confetti stuck to my shoes. The floor felt tacky. My tag swung from a string, white and freshly printed. It read the disappointment in bold, a neat Bruce. I'm Rowan and I'm 25, I smiled thin. A waiter brushed my elbow. His tray rattled like hail. Whiskey fumes drifted above a pyramid of crystal glasses. My glass sweated on the linen, cold ring widening slowly. The band tuned near the piano. Cables snaked under chairs. I felt the envelope in my pocket, stiff as bark. My dad laughed near the bar, voice loud under brass lights. His cufflinks glittered like chips, his smile flashed knives. He slapped a friend's shoulder. Ice clinked in tumblers. He did not see me yet, only the polished crowd. I kept my jaw tight, the envelope pressed bone. My sister waved from the dais, rhinestones sparking like sugar. Her tag showed the air neat on a gold rectangle. She lifted a flute of Prosecco, bubbles racing in light. She mouthed behave at me, her bracelet rang once. I lifted my chin back, sweat crawled my spine. My mom hovered by the cake, lipstick red against white frosting. The vanilla smell rose warm, the knife gleamed near plates. She straightened the candles, hands shaking in a glow. Her eyes cut toward me, then slid back to ribbons. I touched the cake table edge, wood smooth as river stone. A bell rang on a mic, feedback nipped ears. My dad raised his glass, amber fire under the chandelier. He tapped the stand twice, the rim sang thin. I want a quick toast, he said. Chuckles rolled across the leonine tables. He smiled at the ceiling light, breath smoky with cigars. Family builds everything, he said. People murmured yes. He lowered the glass, the ring clicked against crystal. Not tonight, he said, eyes skimming past my corner. The carpet grabbed my soles, the pattern swirled dizzy. I moved toward the piano, keys shut under the lid. A metronome ticked once on top, tiny and insistent. The page of my tag flapped, string rasping my neck. I tasted copper in my mouth, the room tilted. A photographer lifted his camera, flash trembling near my face. Hold still, he said. His strap squeaked leather. I turned my shoulder away. Jacket brushed the mic cable. The words came dry in the stale air. My sister arrived fast, perfume sweet like crushed apricots. This is Dad's moment, she said. Her clutch knocked my hip. I need 1 minute, I said, keeping my voice low. She stared at the envelope shape, then stepped back. My mom came halfway, hands damp on a folded napkin. Please wait, she said. The ice tongs clicked. I nodded without moving, my heels rooted deep. Lint from the napkin dusted her wrist, little white snow. My dad's laugh came again, rough like gravel in gears. He's fine, he said. The room tried smiling. He leaned on the piano, wood groaned under his weight. Be a sport, he said, eyes on the raised glass. The speakers breathed a low hum, like a sleeping animal. I heard forks knock plates, then silence ate the space. The chandelier buzzed faintly, dust glimmered in cones. My palms burned against the envelope, corners needling skin. I lifted it to eye level, and the room held. I have something for you, I said, throat tight. What now? My dad said, his smile not reaching eyes. A candle sputtered beside the cake knife, wax popping soft. Someone dropped a spoon. It rang across tile. I braced the mic stand with my boot, steel cold. My tag says the disappointment, I said, finger tapping cardboard. Joke of the night, a cousin said, voice too bright. The cardboard edge bent. The string cut skin. I laid the tag on the piano, letters facing him. Gas stung my nose from the candles, thick and sweet. I brought my own label, I said, lifting the envelope. Put it away, my dad said, tapping his ring. The ring clicked the wood, a sharp note jumped. My heart knocked back like fists under a door. I raised the envelope higher, and the band fell still. I yanked the attic cord. The bulb popped and hummed. Heat rolled down like breath. Boards creaked under the ladder. Dust swirled in the cone of light, tiny silver gnats. My palm stuck to the rail, resin rough against skin. Something scraped beyond the trunks, a soft warning in the dark. I climbed higher, shirt clinging like damp paper. The air smelled like mothballs, sweet and stale. A cracked suitcase waited near the joist, leather split like bark. The bulb threw a hard circle, edges swallowed by shadow. I crouched low over the suitcase, heart kicking to wood. The zipper teeth fought me, the pull tab ripped skin. Inside lay a wool blanket, coarse and peppered with lint. Under it sat a shoebox, lid taped with brown bands. I peeled one strip slow, adhesive lifting dust flakes. Something shifted inside the box, a tiny thud. I cracked the lid, cardboard rasping in heat. First came a hospital bracelet, plastic cloudy and stiff. A blue knit cap followed, smelling faintly like lavender soap. A bent photo curled up, glossy surface catching the bulb. I set them on the suitcase, sweat dotting the picture. The photo showed a nursery, light flooding a metal crib. My mom's smile looked tight, shoulders hunched near a blue curtain. A clipboard hung on the rail, numbers written in black marker. My dad's arm cut the frame. Only the sleeve showed. I traced the edge gently. The paper felt slick. Beneath the photo lay papers, corners creased to knives. There was a receipt stack, ink faded to ghost gray. A header flashed silver under dust, Highland Diagnostics in caps. A date sat in the margin, same month as my birthday. My throat dried out fast. The bulb hummed louder. I slid a paper free. It crackled like thin ice. A carbon copy stuck behind, blue letters bleeding through. I smelled old glue from the pad, sharp and chemical. The amount glared up, a number circled twice in red. I hissed a breath. The ladder shivered under my heel. A small box hid under the stack, lid printed with swabs. Cotton rolled inside loosely, tip stained a faint yellow. A folded instruction sheet slid out, steps numbered in bold. Tape stuck to my knuckle, hairs yanked with a bite. My pulse counted loud, each beat a wooden knock. I reached deeper, fingers brushing a stiff rectangle. My nail scratched wax, a seal cracked with a snap. I pulled out the envelope, weighty and bright against dust. Blue ink spelled my name, letters even and slow. The paper felt colder than air, like shut metal. A car passed outside, headlights banded the rafters. Tires hissed on wet pavement, night breath fogged the vent. I held the envelope up, shadow slicing across my face. The glue line caught light, a faint ridge like a scar. I tasted copper on my tongue, my mouth dry as ash. Footsteps murmur below. Someone crossed the kitchen tiles. A cabinet door bumped softly. A glass clinked on porcelain. I slid the envelope against my palm, edge biting the crease. The bulb buzzed high. Insects ticked against the shade. I pictured my dad's hands, rings tapping paperwork. "Need anything up there?" My mom called, voice small. "I'm good," I said, keeping air from breaking. A pipe clicked near the eaves. Warm water sighed slow. I tucked the envelope into my jacket, lining rough as sand. Boards answered under me, a careful groan. I glanced back at the suitcase, the blanket slumped open. A pacifier rolled to the edge, rubber dull in the light. The smell of dust thickened, like old books in rain. I pocketed the receipt copy, paper whispering against fabric. My breath fogged the bulb for a second, then cleared. The ladder burned my palms, splinters catching like teeth. Below was cool enough to sting, tile against thin socks. The kitchen light through a square, counters gleamed like ice. A spoon sat near the stove, steam dancing from a pot. I listened for his voice. Only the clock replied. My phone vibrated, screen glowing on the table. A message banner flared, my sister's name in white. "Bring the old family album," she wrote, bubbles blinking. I wiped the screen clean, sleeve dragging across glass. I typed back slowly, the words tasted like smoke. "What album?" I said, the lie thin but steady. "Blue one from the attic," she said, bubbles gone. "Got it," I said, eyes on the envelope bulge. The refrigerator hummed low. Magnets rattled above coupons. I slid open a drawer. Knives gleamed like wet teeth. The paring knife felt cool, handle worn and smooth. I pressed the edge to the flap, found the center seam. Steam curled from the pot, thyme and butter filled air. The paper fibers resisted, then yielded with a sigh. I stopped before the seal split, heart clawing for patience. A picture frame watched from the wall, wedding smiles behind glass. Condensation beaded the window. Streetlight washed the sink gold. I closed the knife slow, spine clicking into home. Footsteps moved in the hallway, robe whispering against wood. I slipped the envelope deeper, lining rustling like leaves. My mom entered with a towel, Lavender clung to the fabric. She set a mug on the counter. Steam fogged the rim. "What were you doing up there?" she asked. I was cautious. "Looking for that blue album," I said, fingers drumming. She studied my jacket hem, then looked at the ceiling. Her hand settled on the mug, glaze shining under the light. "You always dig too far," she said, breath slow. The kettle clicked softly, metal relaxing as it cooled. I lifted the shoebox onto the chair, cardboard bruised and soft. Her shoulders tightened, like wire drawn hard. "Want me to bring this down?" I said, voice even. "Leave it," she said, the word landing heavy. The spoon trembled on the saucer, tiny rings in tea. I traced the box edge lightly, dust smearing my thumb. She stared at my hand, then at the hallway shadow. A drawer shut somewhere, the sound flat and final. The hall light cut out. Only the kitchen glow remained. I wiped my brow with a towel, cotton rough and damp. The envelope rode against my ribs, a steady cold blade. I nodded toward the stairs and kept my eyes low. "Is he home soon?" I asked, pretending easy air. "He called an hour ago," she said, gaze steady. The clock clicked past another mark, little jaw opening. I picked up the blue album gently. Spine cracked once. She flinched a fraction, then forced a smile. "I will take this to her," I said, voice flat. "Be careful with the cover," she said, fingers twitching. The lemon soap on her hands cut through the time. I tucked the album under one arm, leather textured and dry. The other arm guarded my jacket, heat pooling there. I switched off the stove, flames signed to blue ghosts. Steam drifted under the hood, light buzzing like bees. The spoon cooled on porcelain, a soft tick every breath. My shoes found a mat by the door, bristles scratching soles. Rain began outside, the roof whispering secrets. I opened the back door, hinge whining in the frame. Night air slapped fresh, scent of wet leaves and tar. A street lamp bleached the steps, concrete shining like bone. I pulled the door behind me, latch clicking to a hold. The envelope pressed harder, as if it wanted out. I crossed the yard, grass slick against my cuffs. Water gathered on the album, dark flecks on blue. A dog barked 2 houses down, chain rattling once. The world felt thin under rain, like skin over glass. I angled for the garage light, a single yellow eye. Inside the garage, the smell changed, oil and cold iron. Tools lined the pegboard, wrenches gleaming in stripes. I set the album on the workbench, sawdust soft as flour. The envelope settled beside a jar of screws, neat and heavy. Thunder rolled slow, the door shook on its rails. I nudged the radio on, static whispered then cleared. The saxophone moaned low, notes bending toward grief. I scratched grit from my palm, a smear dark on skin. My fingers slid under the flap, paper fibers lifting. I inhaled once and held that breath like a dare. I tore the flap clean. Paper fibers hissed in the dark. Rain ticked on the roof, the garage bulb burned yellow. The radio breathed low sax, dust lifted off the workbench. I slid the envelope open, edge scraping the jar of screws. Something stiff inside shifted, like a card against glass. A cover page slid out, letterhead embossed in silver. It smelled like warm toner, sweet and a little bitter. The page shone under the bulb, watermark ghosting across lines. Chain of custody ran left, boxes neat and numbered. My thumb left a damp print. The paper drank it slow. Collector name sat blank. Only a crooked initial showed. There was a clipboard icon, tiny and stamped dark. Dates had tight numerals, same week as the blue cap. A barcode strip clung near the bottom, adhesive gritty on touch. I heard thunder roll. The door rattled once. I pulled the next sheet. A pink copy bled blue. The saxophone bent a note. Radio static fuzzed the edges. A yellow sticky note rode the top. Glue smelled sharp. "Do not show him," written small in my mom's hand. The letters sloped right, like they wanted to run. My phone buzzed again. The screen lit my knuckles. A new message blinked white. "Is Dad with you?" I set the phone face down, case cold on steel. The light hummed steady. Bugs tapped the plastic cover. I slid the sticky aside and pressed on hard. Alleged father sat bold, his name printed in caps. My chest tightened slow. The sax line thinned to a wire. A box marked probability waited, blank on this copy. I flipped the page fast, staples dragging like teeth. The next sheet had the number, black and exact. It read 99.99, smooth and merciless. The ink looked wet, but it did not smear. A raised seal pressed the corner, circles within circles. I tapped the seal once. The paper thumped dull. Rain hammered louder, as if cheering the score. A separate invoice slipped free, thin paper like onion skin. Oil smell drifted from the vise. Metal held a screw. Line items sat in rows. Swab kit and courier service. The second test appeared below. Subject C billed 2 days later. No names listed, only another barcode string. I stare at the barcode, numbers slicing the margin. The bulb flickered once. Shadows jumped across the pegboard. A lockbox under the bench caught light. Corners scraped raw. I felt for the latch, knuckles knocking wood softly. The envelope scraped my jacket, paper whispering a dare. I opened the lockbox, hinges crying under the hum. Inside lay a small pouch, cloth rough as salt. The pouch held extra labels, edges curled from age. A tiny memory card hid beneath, plastic cold as ice. I lifted it to the bulb, letters stamped along the rim. The side door creaked, a ribbon of kitchen lights spilled. Lavender and tea drifted in, steam meeting rain smell. "You still out here?" My mom asked, voice frayed. "Yeah," I said, fingers closing on the card. She stepped into the frame. Towel pressed to her palm. Her slippers whispered on concrete, little shuffles near nails. She looked at the bench, then at the open envelope. "What did you find?" she asked, eyes holding mine. "Copies and dates," I said, keeping the radio low. She set the towel by the vise, terry cloth darkening. "Please put that away," she said, breath thin. The towel smelled like dryer sheets, sweet and wrong. She reached for the envelope, rings flashing under the bulb. I moved it left a little, wood rasping under paper. Her fingers stopped short, air buzzing between us. "What is Subject C?" I asked, tapping the invoice. "Old paperwork," she said, too fast for calm. The radio crackled softly. Trumpet joined the sax. Her gaze slid to the lockbox, then away like smoke. I felt the pouch edge, grit grained under my nail. "Who took the samples?" I asked, voice level. She swallowed once, throat working under the light. "The instructions were clear," she said, eyes on the towel. A raindrop spattered through the vent, cold on the bench. I touched the instruction sheet, paper smooth and clinical. A photo fell from the stack, glossy and bright. The chemical smell hit quick, vinegar and plastic. It showed a living room lamp, shade tilted toward a crib. A gloved hand held a swab white tip near a baby's cheek. The flash burned a harsh square, shadows cut like blades. "Who took this?" I asked, breath burning. She pressed the towel harder, palms whitening under thread. "It was a precaution," she said, voice soft as lint. The picture edge bit my thumb. A thin red line swelled. The radio whispered a cymbal brush, like rain on foil. "Whose glove is that?" I asked, pointing at the frame. She closed her eyes once, lashes wet in the light. "He brought someone," she said, barely above a whisper. A car passed the window, headlights crawling across wrenches. I slid the photo under the invoice. It scratched like tinder. The memory card dug my palm, small and implacable. I set it by the screws, a black beetle on silver. "Is there more?" I asked, voice steady but thin. Her breath fogged the bulb cover. A milky halo formed. She nodded once, then shook her head like a fight. "Give me the rest," I said, hand open. She lifted the pouch slowly, threads rasping against wood. A smaller envelope slid out, wax stamped with a star. The wax smelled faintly like candle smoke, sweet and old. She placed it between us, like a truce with teeth. "I never opened that," she said, eyes on the stamp. "Why not?" I asked, thumb tracing the edge. "The stamp meant keep," she said, voice almost gone. The bulb hummed harder. Flies ticked in frantic loops. I raised the envelope, the wax cold like stone. The seal cracked clean, a dry pop in the hush. Inside was a single card, heavy and off-white. A typed line sat centered. No heading and no name. "Consent on file. Signed by Guardian. Retention approved." My skin crawled under my jacket. Heat and ice together. "Who was the Guardian?" I asked, mouth tight. She watched the towel edges, threads fraying under nails. "Not me," she said, finally looking up. Thunder thumped close. The door shivered on its track. I slid the card back. corners catching like thorns. I gathered every page, stacked squared under my palm. Oil from the vise smudged a corner, gray against white. The radio sank to quiet, a last brush over brass. The memory card vanished into my pocket, small stone. I looked at the door, light pooling like questions. Will he be angry? I asked, voice flat. Her eyes tracked the rain, streaks silver on the window. He already is, she said, breath barely there. The towel slumped off the bench, landing in sawdust. I tucked the envelope tight, edges cutting a promise. I slid the memory card in, the laptop fan whirred up. Cold light filled the garage, blew on the pegboard nails. Oil and rain mixed in air, a sour metal breath. The trackpad felt gritty. Sawdust clung to my fingers. A folder opened by itself, first file waiting like bait. I clicked the thumbnail. A shaky room blinked into view. A lamp burned hot, shade tilted toward a white crib. Static crackled in the speakers, like foil rubbed slow. A gloved hand entered frame, holding a capped swab. A man's voice counted time codes, each number dropping heavy. He wore a navy suit, lapel pin shaped like scales. Fluorescent light washed his forehead, skin shining like glass. Chain check, he said, voice clipped and dry. A clipboard hung from his wrist. Metal clip clacked once. My hand tightened on the mouse. The visor of truth dropped. The camera wobbled right. A form filled the screen. Guardian Field showed a typed name, Mvale in clean letters. The ink looked fresh, glossy under the bulb glare. He tapped the signature line, pen tip ticking plastic. Sign on behalf, he said, breath fogging the lens. I paused the frame. The laptop keys warmed my skin. Dust drifted through the yellow bulb, tiny snow in slow falls. A business card lay on the table, corners sharp and white. Vale Investigations printed in silver, a phone number below. The silver caught light, like a fish up from black water. I opened the next file. The speakers hissed softer. Kitchen cabinets filled the shot, paint smooth and bright. Steam curled from a kettle, whistle trembling toward break. The same man stood ready, swab angled like a dart. He nudged a consent form, paper rasping across tile. Subject C, he said, tapping the top line. A hand slid in, thin wrist and lemon soap smell. Ink scratched across the space, signature quick then tight. The pen clicked shut, hard plastic against ceramic. I stared at the bottom date, 2 days past the first. I scrubbed forward. The cursor glowed pale blue. A barcode label peeled free, adhesive shining under light. He pressed it to a tube, clear plastic fogged with breath. The kettle whistled full, then cut with a soft sigh. He sealed the bag, zip running like teeth. Another folder blinked, audio stamped in block letters. I double-clicked, a flat line sprung to life. Paper rustled near the mic. A sleeve brushed the edge. Air felt colder on my forearms, laptop fan rising. A familiar voice stepped in, careful and warm then not. Keep everything off-site, he said, tone smooth. Destroy duplicates after the event, he added, calmer. The mic picked ice in the glass, a lazy clink. I swallowed hard. The radio on the shelf stayed mute. The word event hung there, heavy as a hammer. I backed out fast. The cursor stuttered, then steadied. A PDF waited. File name read place cards final. The thumbnail showed neat rows, cream tints in a grid. I opened it wide, screen light bleaching my knuckles. A faint toner smell rose, plastic sweet and wrong. Names filled the squares, each printed in tall black. One read the disappointment, left margin tight and cruel. Another read the air, letters crisp like teeth. A third said the vision, the font bolded twice. I scrolled the footer, initials nested beside each line. A red note pulsed, comments open in the margin. Click to approve, someone had typed in clean gray. The track name showed MC, tiny bubble flicking. I leaned close, pixels settling into sharp edges. The laptop fan roared, and something inside me did too. A car door slammed outside, sound hard and hollow. Exhaust drifted through the gaps, diesel bitter and thick. Headlights washed the garage door, long stripes of white. Keys jingled near the kitchen, a careless rattle and swing. I snapped the window smaller, the cursor shook like a leaf. Footsteps crossed tile, the rhythm clean and known. Lavender and rain slipped in, the door opened an inch. You done out here? My mom asked, voice tight. Almost, I said, palm over the touchpad. Her eyes found the screen, then the pouch by the vise. Please close it now, she said, fingers worrying the towel. The towel smelled like old dryer heat, warm and flat. I need 5 minutes, I said, chest locked. She placed a mug on the bench, glaze beaded with steam. She looked at the house dark, and then back at me. He will turn this on you, she said, eyes shining. The mug clicked on wood, porcelain chimed once. Let him try, I said, voice staying even. A gust rattled the door. Rain whispered at the seam. She pressed her thumb to a knot, pressing a prayer into pine. The hallway light flared. A switch snapped loud. Leather shoes crossed linoleum. Heel taps spaced and sure. Cologne rolled in first, clean citrus under wet wool. A shadow filled the doorway, shoulders wide against light. I dragged the laptop closer, cord scraping steel. What are we working on? He said, a soft drawl. Old photos, I said, the light thin and bright. His ring clicked the frame, metal against the jamb. He stepped inside slow, eyes lifting toward the bench. The bulb painted his hair, every silver line like frost. He spotted the business card, silver flashing on white. His smile tightened one notch, cheeks pale under glow. That's not ours, he said, looking at my hands. Found it with junk, I said, thumb hiding the logo. He set a wet glove on the vise, water pooling like mercury. Hand me the laptop, he said, voice low. Not yet, I said, fingers braced on the lid. The fan moaned higher, heat running into my wrists. He reached across the bench, cuff brushing the screwdriver. The screwdriver rolled once, then stopped at the edge. He leaned closer, breath cool and minty and sharp. Privacy is a virtue, he said, smile not moving. Truth is another, I said, anchoring my feet. The wrench beside me caught light, chrome like a silent threat. Rain drummed the roof, a war of small fists. Show me, he said, palm open and patient. After my minute, I said, voice clipped. My mom shifted behind him, slippers whispering a warning. He drummed 2 fingers on the bench, rhythm steady as a clock. I dragged the window wider. The PDF filled his reflection. The initials glowed in the footer, black marks like tracks. He saw them and stilled, eyes narrowing to slits. Light from the screen bleached his knuckles, bone white and tense. The business cards slid off the vise, soft tap on cement. His hand moved for the lid, and mine moved faster. I snapped the laptop shut. Plastic thumped in my palms. Silence burned for a beat. Only the rain held ground. He smiled without teeth, a dead calm over everything. Bring that to the party, he said, smooth and sure. His glove lay dark on the bench, a wet print like a mark. I slammed the car door. Rain needles my cheeks. The wipers scraped the windshield, rubber whining in loops. Leather smells warm inside. The steering wheel feels slick. The envelope rides my chest, square and stubborn under cloth. I start the engine, and the road glitters like blade. I plug the tiny adapter in, a blue light blinks. The memory cards slide home. Plastic kisses the port. My phone chirps once, a file bar crawls across glass. Fan, air tastes dusty, vents coughing under the dash. I watch the progress crawl, each percent a drumbeat. Headlights blow through the wet, white bars across my knuckles. The tires hum steady, water lifting in silver fans. A receipt curls from the visor, edges damp like leaves. I rub the ink dry, numbers surfacing through fog. The adapter warms my palm, a pocket star beating. The phone buzzes again, the ringtone cuts bright air. Where are you? My sister asks, voice close to sharp. 10 minutes out, I say, fingertips drumming the wheel. Bring the album, she says, ice clinking near metal. Already with me, I say, eyes on the gate lights. I kill the call, the cab returns to rain. A billboard blares gold, champagne bursting over a logo. I taste battery on my tongue, tin and heat. The envelope edge bites my ribs, a patient tooth. I press it flatter, and the car smells like rubber. Valet umbrellas rush the curb. Raindrops glitter on fabric. One grabs my door, bell ringing near the awning. Welcome, sir, he says, gloves soft against my sleeve. I hand him the keys, metal warm from the drive. He nods toward the entrance, a red carpet bleeding light. Inside the foyer the air chills, freon and roses. The marble shines like water, footprints ghosting behind heels. I pass a flower tower, Lily's yawning sweet and loud. My tag waits on a tray, the cardstock heavy as guilt. I lift it slow, letters gleaming under chandelier fire. The staffer clips it on pin teeth nip skin. Name check, she asks, tablet glowing like a moon. Already printed, I say, touching the sharp corner. Her perfume tastes powdery, like sugared breath in winter. She smiles thin and steps aside like a curtain. I cut toward the side hall, brass sconces humming faintly. The service door breathes steam, stainless damp and bright. The navy suit man stands there, lapel pinned sharp as fangs. His eyes slide over me, then settle on the tray. He lifts a radio, and the radio hisses once. I turn toward the ballroom, carpet muffling each step. The band tunes low, sax sighing through the dark. A clipboard hangs on a hook, schedules stacked and neat. I skim the top line, names marching in tidy rows. My stomach tightens, the font gleams like wet paint. The place card table glows, tiny tints under glass lamps. I can smell ink and glue, plastics warm from light. I spot my word again, the edges beveled like knives. The silver marker lies nearby, cap dented like a tooth. I pocket the marker, and my pulse quickens hard. The bar flickers with bottles, green and amber cities. Citrus peels curl like ribbons. The smell cuts clean. Double, I say, fingers on the counter's cold edge. The bartender nods once, shaker rattling like stones. I leave the glass untouched and watch mirrors bend faces. My mom appears in the reflection, pearls pale under light. She is steady on the tiles, steps small as breaths. Do not start here, she says, hands tucked low. Then show me upstairs, I say, voice quiet and tight. She glances at a staircase, brass rail glowing like honey. We climb into carpet hush, footsteps soften to clouds. An exit sign bleeds red, drywall warm under my palm. The hallway smells like polish, lemon sharp on air. A framed ship leans crooked, glass reflecting a thin line. She stops at a door, and breath fogs the knob. Be quick, she says, thumb sliding a small key. The lock clicks once, metal ringing like a coin. Light floods a small office, lampshade tilted and bright. The safe hums under a painting, black dial gleaming slow. She pulls the painting outward, hinges whispering a secret. She gives me a number, the digits fall like nails. I spin the dial carefully, no biting my fingertips. The safe exhales cold air, paper smell, dry and old. Inside sits a leather folio, corners bruised like apples. I lift it free, and every nerve turns electric. Voices rise below us, laughter buzzing like flies. The ceiling speaker crackles. A mic test stabs once. I open the folio flat, zipper teeth whispering long. The tidy logbook waits inside, grid lines sharp as rails. I trace a column title, notes for seating logic. Entries snake down the page, remarks brief and sharp. I read a fresh line under tonight's printed date. The air to remain centered, optics matter over truth. The ink shines wet, as if signed a minute ago. My throat goes dry, like chalk under a boot. I flip a page fast, paper scraping the desk. A stapled photo strip falls, glossy squares face down. I write them with one finger, sheen catching lamplight. He stands with a Navy man, their mouths mid-laugh. A checkbook lies between hands, pin frozen mid-stroke. Footsteps approach the hall, heel taps clean and bright. My mom kills the lamp. The room folds into dusk. Dust floats in the dark, silver threads against shadow. We hold our breath. The knob twitches like a jaw. The steps pause once, then fade toward music. She squeezes my wrist, skin cool and shaking. Enough, she says, whisper scraping my ear. I slide the folio back, leather slipping like wet stone. I close the safe slow, dial turning to stilled moonlight. The painting settles, frame thudding like a heartbeat. Back on the stairs, the smell changes, heat and sugar. Candles flare along the rail, puddles of molten gold. Below us clinks rise, forks striking thin, fragile notes. I palm the marker cap, plastic clicking like a metronome. She steps ahead fast, silk hushing along the runner. At the landing, she stops, eyes shining under crystal rain. Please wait for the toast, she says, voice holding threads. I will say what I must, I say, breathing steady. She looks at the marker, then at my jacket seam. Her hands drop, and she turns toward the glitter. I cut toward the catering door, metal cold against knuckles. Steam bursts out hot, garlic and butter crowd breath. A baker balances a sugar plaque, letters raised like bone. Legacy, it reads, glistening over the white. I watch it pass and feel my skin crawl. I shoulder into the coat room, dark and close as sleep. A single bulb hums, a cone on wooden hangers. The air tastes like cedar, old coats exhaling winter. A porcelain vase sits crooked, blue flowers curling in glaze. I slide a copy under it, paper kissing cool clay. I tuck the memory card deeper, beneath a folded scarf. Wool scratches my knuckles, hiding the small weight. A fire extinguisher stares red, gauge needle steady. I tape a second copy behind it, film stretching like skin. One breath later, the room feels less alone. Out in the hall, the band swells, brass climbing like smoke. Light spills in warm bands, dust dancing above carpet. My cousin waves a camera, strap creaking across leather. Smile later, he says, lens cap popping free. Shoot everything, I say, and he blinks at my tone. The ballroom doors open, sound slams like surf. Glitter eats the ceiling, chandelier shards blaze white. I smell whiskey and powder, the mingle thick and sweet. A folded napkin waits at my place, linen cool like frost. I press the marker into it and print one word. Enough, I write, ink bleeding in blue veins. I leave it under the plate, porcelain hiding the message. The silverware ticks softly, tiny knocks of nervous hands. A candle spits wax, dotting the tablecloth like stars. The mic crackles once, and everything tilts toward it. I touch the envelope again, edge familiar as tooth. The paper feels warmer, body heat trapped in fibers. The ceiling lights dim a notch, room shrinking to a ring. A glass center glows, a circle waiting for feet. I take one step, then another through the bright. The mic pops hard, light blazes off the piano lid. Heat pours from the cans, sweat slicks my knuckles. I raise the envelope level with my chin, paper bright. A hush runs over the tables, forks stall over china. My pulse kicks the stand, and the metal sings. 30 seconds, I say, breath tight in my throat. Sit down, my dad says, voice smooth as marble. The soundboard crackles near the stage, sliders glint under LEDs. The navy suit man touches a switch, a red button glows. My words go thin without amplification, room holding its breath. I step closer to the edge, carpet plush against my heel. The chandelier throws glitter, white shards across my sleeve. I lay the envelope on the piano, cornered kissing wood. A metronome ticks once beside it, little heart with teeth. I tap the lid twice, and faces lean in. The band cools their brass, valves clicking like insects. Cologne and whiskey mix heavy, the scent hangs low. I lift a paper from my pocket, a small receipt curls. Its ink shines under the light, numbers tied in rows. I hold it up and eyes find the black. A purchase was billed incorrectly, I say, pacing slow. A harmless label maybe, I add, voice steady as wire. The Navy man watches the crowd, radio tucked near cuff. The receipt crinkles in my grip, paper rough as husk. I point at the header, and several phones rise. It came from a foundation account, I say, jaw set. Not from any personal wallet, I add, letting that hang. The chandeliers hum faintly, filaments singing like bees. Gold script on the cake gleams, the sugar plaque reading legacy. A ripple passes the tables, like wind through wheat. My sister's bracelet clicks once, glass bright under the lamps. Stop this, she says, voice small for the room. Tell me why that line item lies. I say, right back. She grips her flute by the waist, silver band warm. Her eyes cut to the bar, then back like a blade. A photographer lifts his rig, flash warming in a wine. Get this, I say, nodding at the envelope. He shuffles near the piano, strap squeaks over leather. The metronome ticks again, tempo neat as orders. My dad smiles at the lens, teeth white and calm. Legacy means tomorrow, he says, palm polished with light. Legacy means today, I say, touching the receipt line. Ice clinks deep at the bar. Tongs nip the cubes. I tap a single word in the memo, archival services in quotes. A waiter leans closer, tray trembling like a wing. Odd label for that vendor, I say, tone flat. Murmurs lick the edges. Cloth rustles and glass hisses. The light finds the silver marker cap dented in my pocket. I pull it free and test the tip. Ink beads dark. My tag catches the sparkle, letters waiting like bait. I unclip my tag fast, pin biting my skin. The chandelier heat pricks, sweat stings the spot. I cross out one word slowly, stroke squealing on card. I write a new label in mirror shine. The evidence stares back. A gasp lifts near the cake. Candles spit wax. The Navy man drifts to the soundboard, dark as a shadow. He kills a channel quietly. A green light dies. The speakers hush deeper. Dead air swallows corners. I plant my boots and project, heat burning my throat. Eyes tilt toward me, like sunflowers under a flare. A donor in a velvet jacket clears. Cough dries chalk. "What is your point?" he asks, knuckles on cane. "The point is location," I say, lifting another slip. The paper smells like toner, edges hot from the printer. It lists a suite number in crisp black. "That suite is upstairs," I say, pointing left. "Not the clinic, obviously," I add, watching his brow. A server brushes past with mint. Cool air kisses skin. I lay the slip by the envelope. 2 flags on black lacquer. The metronome ticks again, faster by a hair. My mom exhales near the bar, breath fogging a flute. "Please wait for the toast," she says, voice thin and even. After one more piece, I say, eyes on the board. The sound tech glances up, fingers hovering over faders. He looks at my dad, then at the Navy man. I pull the memory card case, plastic tight in my fist. Light skates across its face, a small dark mirror. The bandleader senses the room, stick tapping a cymbal once. "You can all count," I say, keeping the case high. The cymbal whispers its shiver, and silence folds. My dad lifts a glass, liquid amber, against crystal. "Family first," he says, voice rolling like wax. "Order first," I say, nodding at the card slot. The slot in my phone winks, metal line thin as a cut. He lowers the glass, arm tightening like cable. "Show it then," he says, tone easy as velvet. After I secure copies, I say, tapping my jacket. Camera shutters tick around us. Tiny guillotine clicks. A folded napkin waits by my plate, linen smooth and cool. I slide the receipt under it, like a blade in cloth. A planner rushes from the wings, headset lit pale green. She smells like hairspray and stress shine on her clipboard. "Is there a program change?" she asks, eyes blinking fast. "Yes," I say, nodding toward the mic stand. She swallows air, then stares at my dad for help. He smiles for the room, cheeks lit by chandelier fire. "Let him finish," he says, the words poured slow. A ripple of surprise lifts, glass stems ringing once. He sets the glass on the piano, bass cold on wood. The Navy man's jaw works, radio wire bright at cuff. I flip the marker and uncap, solvent biting my nose. I drag a line through a place card, scratch loud as slate. A name built by title vanishes, silver strip gleams wet. I prop the ruined card on a candle holder, wax spits. The scent of smoke climbs, thin and sweet as lies. A cousin edges closer, tie crooked against his shirt. "Are you okay?" he asks, hand hovering near shoulder. "Ask me later," I say, keeping my eyes forward. He nods and backs away, shoes squeaking on polish. The photographer follows him, lens hunting for heat. A waiter bumps the piano, Wood answers with a groan. The glass my dad set trembles, ring printing on lacquer. I steady it with 2 fingers, chill sliding into skin. He watches the gesture, then the envelope beside it. His face goes empty, like a hallway with no doors. I lift the envelope again, paper warm from lights. The band holds their breath, brass catching saliva threads. I angle it toward the camera, corner cutting of bright V. The room inhales together, a single animal sound. I touch the seal, then let it rest closed. I turn to my sister, her flute silver under spots. "Would you play if he asks?" I say, voice soft. "Always," she says, eyes shining like ice. "Play now for me," I say, and she freezes. The mic stand waits, black stem growing taller. She lowers the flute slowly, pads whispering in a hush. Perfume floats over the table, apricot sweet and heavy. Her hand rubs a smudge off the lip, cloth dark with polish. She looks at our dad, then the candle near her glass. The candle leans, a small flame begging a storm. A man in gray at the back waves, cufflink star sharp. Some of us invested tonight, he says, voice clipped. Then you want clean books, I say, showing the header. A vein in his temple jumps. Light scores the ridge. He lowers his hand and checks his watch twice. The soundboard springs alive, a channel unmuted with a click. I test the mic gently. A low thud shakes the cones. Static prickles my tongue, metal taste and fear. I place the mic near the envelope. 2 black totems. My voice returns warm, blooming from the speakers. I will ask 3 questions. I say breath set. Only 3 for the moment. I add, letting space expand. The chandelier thrums like a hive, light dancing on forks. I raise one finger toward the board, nail pale under heat. The Navy man locks his stance, eyes hard as buckles. Who paid this vendor through the foundation? I ask clear. The receipt lies open, numbers crouched in rows. Why hide the purpose in a friendly code? I ask brighter. The batteries in the mic warm, skin tingles on Noel. And what is in that upstairs room? I ask, pointing left. The room shifts like water. Chairs creak and fabric sighs. Someone coughs near the cake. Frosting scent lifts heavy. My dad smiles broader now, the kind that blinds. He steps under the chandelier, crystal rain kissing his hair. And he says we should all hear the answers together. I step into the heat. The mic hums in my hand. Crystal throws white shards. The chandelier spits fire on the lid. Cigar haze rides the air. It curls around his glass. The envelope brushes the piano, paper rasping like sand. Together then, I say, and the room leans closer. He takes one step, cufflinks winking like coins in snow. Cologne cuts through the smoke, bright citrus over whiskey breath. His ring taps the stem, a clean metallic click. Ask, he says, voice smooth and careful. I feel the lacquer cool and raise the first blade. Who is M. Vale? I ask, tipping the receipt edge. The speakers carry my words, warm and round with grit. The Navy suit man straightens, lapel pin glinting hard. Foundation counsel, he says, radio wire bright at cuff. A hush ripples the linen and forks stop midair. I slide a card to the mic, stock heavy and off-white. Toner smells sweet, the line sits neat and black. Guardian on file, signed by M. Vale, retention approved. Light pools on the serif letters, ink shining like oil. Counsel is not a guardian, I say, and wait. My sister's flute neck chills her grip, silver fogged by breath. A candle near her glass gutters, wax drools down the stem. Who was subject C? I ask, voice leveled like steel. He watches the flame tilt, jaw hitching a fraction. Insurance, he says, and the crowd rustles sharper. I lift a second slip, paper hot from my pocket. The smell of glue rises, edges bite at my thumb. The date matches her discharge, digits lined in black. I place it by the envelope, 2 flags on black wood. My sister blinks fast, bracelet ticking like rain. Above us a motor whines, faint through the velvet air. Hot plastic threads the scent, a shredder chewing somewhere. The exit sign bleeds red, metal door quiet but waiting. Upstairs is not storage, I say, pointing with a mic. The chandelier sings softly, and phones lift like flowers. He breathes through his nose. The glass fogs, then clears. His smile goes thin, light flattening his eyes. I tested both to protect the house, he says. The word protect rings, bright as a dropped spoon. I wanted one perfect child, he adds, almost tender. I flip a spare place card, cardstock hissing over silk. Fresh ink smells like solvent, silver gleams under lamps. A barcode sleeps on the back, lines knotted like vines. Labels track obedience. I say, rubbing the raised print. The metronome beside me clicks, faster than before. Donors angle their chairs, leather sighs and pearls creak. A bottle sweats on the table, cold water fogs blue glass. Your money paid compliance retention, I say clear and slow. 3 transaction IDs sit printed, black squares in a row. The band waits silent, horns pointed like questions. He steps into the spotlight, hair rimmed with crystal rain. Ice cracks in his glass, a tiny lightning inside amber. Legacy requires choices, he says, voice sweet as varnish. Choice requires consent, I say, palm on the envelope. The lid trembles under my hand, wood ready to sing. He reaches for the paper, Fingers neat and practiced. Whiskey kisses my nose, a warm burn around words. I lift the envelope higher, corner catching camera flash. Silver flares across faces. Eyes pin like pins. Not tonight, I say, and the room tightens to wire.